Hey friends, it's Heather from Staying Scrappy, and I'm so excited to share my very first process video with you. Valentine's Day is coming up, so I have a love-themed layout today, and I'm starting with this gorgeous typewriter cut file from Paige Evans. And if you're wondering what a typewriter has to do with love and Valentine's Day, just hang in there, wait till the end, I promise it'll make sense. So right now, I'm just getting ready to back my cut file with a lined paper from the Splendid Project Pad. Again, by Paige Evans. It's a beautiful collection. And I'm not doing anything fancy or special here. I'm just backing the cut file like you normally would. I'm tracing around the outside of the inner piece that the Cricut cut out, cutting it a little bit bigger, and then gluing it on the back. I was really inspired by the icons from Splendid, so I decided to go bold and make a red typewriter. And it really made the work a lot easier for me trying to decide what colors to use, just basing it off of these Splendid icons, because I didn't know what color to make it until I saw these adorable typewriters in the Splendid collection, and I knew I had to make myself a red typewriter. And again, I'm not doing anything fancy or special to back this cut file. I'm just tracing, cutting, and gluing. And by the magic of editing, you're about to see the final cut file. There it is! I think it turned out so cute. I used a little bit of blue, a little bit of gray, a little bit of black, and again, mostly that gorgeous red color, which is a cardstock from my stash. And for the spacebar and for the keys, I wanted to add some dimension, because on a real typewriter, those keys really stick up and they have a lot of dimension to them. So to recreate that, I'm adding some little strips of foam behind the spacebar and gluing that down. And in a minute here, you'll see me do the same thing to all of the keys on the typewriter. And I'm not going to lie, it took a long time cutting out all those teeny tiny little foam squares to adhere the typewriter keys onto, but I think it was worth it in the end. And I did this assembly line style, so I have all my little tiny squares of craft foam. I wish I could say it was the adhesive kind, but I accidentally bought the wrong kind, so I have to glue it down on both sides, but that's okay. So I'm gluing it down on the typewriter first, and then afterward I go through and add all of the inner pieces on top. So I'll have dimensional white typewriter keys by the end. And again, through the magic of editing, it's almost done here. Just a couple more things to glue on. And I think in 3, 2, 1? Nope, I got my timing totally wrong there. That's okay. It should be soon, though. There we go. Now it's almost done. Just a few more of those little white pieces to put on top. And this cut file will be complete. And like I said, I love the dimension that this adds. Gives it that little bit of sense of realism, having the keys up higher like they would be on a real typewriter. And I knew that I wanted to embellish with flowers from Splendid. The typewriters on those icons are surrounded by these beautiful florals, and I knew I wanted to incorporate that on a large scale on this layout. So ta-da! There's the finished cut file! Oh, I love that dimension. So much fun. Totally worth all the time that it took to cut out those teeny tiny squares. Here's my background page. It is from Bo Bunny. It's the collection that came out a couple collections ago. If you're curious exactly what paper it is and what collection it is, just leave a comment below and I'll be sure to respond to that and let you know what paper this is. This is another paper from Splendid, and I'm going to be fussy cutting all of these gorgeous flowers. And I don't film this whole process because that would be super boring to watch. But I do take a bunch of these floral pieces and even some teeny tiny red flowers from another patterned paper to create some embellishments for this page. So there's all my fussy cutting flowers, and there's my photo. It's a super silly selfie of me and my husband on a road trip. And at this point I decided to add some mixed media to spice up the background a little bit. So I'm tracing around the edges of the typewriter, get those flowers off of there. And next, I'm going to pull out some Lindy's Gain Magical Powders. I'm using the color Janna's Jade, which is one of my very favorite watercolors of Lindy's Magicals. I think it's so gorgeous, so shimmery. And I'm going to be using the packaging technique to put just a little bit of this on my background and spice it up a little bit. So I'm just using the end of my paintbrush to scoop a little bit of that powder onto my palette, adding some water. And I have a little bit of spare packaging that I'm going to use. I'm going to use my brush, just brush right on the packaging there, and spread it around, smush it a little, come back in with my brush, and a little more on the other side too. And I don't want a ton of this. It ended up being a little bit more bold than I was expecting it to, but that's alright. I just think it still looks okay in the end. So I decided I need a little bit more, so I'm adding more powder into my paintbrush. Going to be adding more water, more watercolor, more mixed media, just more. Can't get enough of this Gianna's Jade. It is such a beautiful color. And I will link the Lindy's Gang store down below if you're interested in getting some of these amazing watercolors for your mixed media layouts. We use a roll of paper towels to dab up a little bit of the paint, make it a little bit less bold, and it's not super noticeable, but it did pick up some of the bigger chunks. I bring my cut file back on to see if I like how it looks. And I think I do. I think it looks pretty good. Oh, there's my hair. Excuse that. Oh, nope, we're not done. I'm going to add more. This time, we're adding a little bit more to the left side. I feel like the right is a little bit darker than the left, so I'm coming in with a little bit more watercolor so that both sides are equally saturated or intense. And last, I'm going to do some splatters. And again, I'm going to roll it up with my paper towel to make those splatters a little bit less intense, a little bit less dark. And I think the mixed media is done now. Yep, it's all done. So we're going to come back in with these flowers, rearrange them back on the page. And I didn't film this part, but that little yellow flower on the right-hand cluster, I ended up cutting it off and moving it somewhere else because it was getting in the way of my picture. So if you have a fussy cut element or a sticker or any kind of embellishment that's just not quite working the way you want it to, feel free to change it up. Cut it apart, disassemble it, do whatever you need to make it work for you. I know that's something that Missy Wynn says a lot in her videos, and honestly it had never occurred to me before that I could cut up a sticker until she said it. And I was like, oh, you're right, I can cut up a sticker. So if you are still wondering what a typewriter has to do with love and Valentine's Day, you're about to find out. This idea came to me in the middle of the night, you know, one of those 2 a.m. crazy ideas, to use this typewriter cut file and have it say, "You're just my type." And I think it's so cheesy, but so cute. So that's going to be my title, and I used my Cricut to cut it out on these little itty bitty typewriter font letters. I used black to pull out the black elements in the typewriter and in my picture. And I had to use my little spatula to pull them off my mat because it's a pretty new mat and it's pretty sticky. I had to do some reconstructive surgery on the R because it ripped, but I think it worked out okay. And I'm liking how this is looking so far, so I'm going to start gluing everything down. I'm using Bearly Art glue. It has a really fine tip, which I love, especially for gluing down teeny tiny letters like this. It's also great for backing cut files, because again, you tend to have a lot of thin, intricate stuff there. And I love that fine tip on the Bearly Art glue. I accidentally put the O on sideways, so I had to rotate it a little bit, but I got it fixed. I decided to add some more foam behind the flowers. Again, just adding more dimension, making things really pop. And I love how these florals look with the typewriter. I think they just add so much color, and they're so bright and bold that they almost make the red typewriter a little less intense, if that makes sense. Yeah, but I really like how they look together, and I love that I was able to take one of these icons from the Paige Evans Splendid collection and turn it into kind of a large scale overall scrapbook layout design. So I've got everything almost glued down at this point. I'm finally trimming off my paper strip at the top of my background paper. I don't know why it took me so long to get around to that. That bit is done, and I want to do quite a bit of journaling on this page, which is why I left such a large amount of open space next to my picture. And I learned this tip from Missy Wooden as well. I'm adding some tissue paper behind my photo just to add a subtle little messy layer, another little border behind my photo. I do that almost every layout now, so I just love the subtle texture and messiness that it adds. And pretty soon here I'm going to come in with a ruler to draw some journaling lines. I'm also going to use the lines that are already printed on the page, gluing my photo down, and just write a little bit of journaling about how great my husband is and how we always have these crazy pictures of us together, because as much as we try to take normal pictures, that's just not our personalities, and we always end up with these goofy selfies instead. And so I'm drawing in my lines with a pencil first, just because I know my journaling is not going to be straight if I don't have guidelines to follow. And I also like to write my journaling with a pencil first, just to make sure that everything I want to say will fit in the space that I have available. So I've gone in and written over the pencil lines with a black pen, and I love all the dimension from the foam on this layout. I think it turned out so fun, so cute, and the final shots are coming up here in just a second. I think. There we go, there's the final image. I think the red typewriter is so fun. I think the splendid florals are so fun. So I hope this page inspires you to check out the Splendid Collection by Paige Evans, go check out her cut files, and stay scrappy!